Israel war on Iran, but the fact that it has spread beyond that, the fact that it has gained pace, as Jasmine was saying there, eventually it gets wider and wider, different countries around the world drawn into it, and that's when the scenarios start to change, the calculations start to change, those high-level diplomatic and political conversations start to change. And I think that's why we're keeping such a close eye on this fast developing story, because it just remains at this stage so very unpredictable, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it may feel far away to some people here in Europe, but of course economically it can affect us very quickly. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, Saudi oil installations have been hit today, the LNG supplies, which are more sensitive than oil deliveries, are now being disrupted. Let's get a view on that from Dr. Sultan Barakat. He's the senior professor in public policy at the Hamad bin Khalifa University in Doha, Qatar. He's speaking to us from London today. Just on that point, I mean, how extensive is the targeting of Qatar now, and indeed the infrastructure on which Qatar relies?
Well, I'm actually stranded here in London, unable to return to Doha because of the war. And I think the targeting is pretty much still focused on the American bases, to be honest, not only in Qatar, but across the whole region. The damage that is taking place elsewhere is probably because of the inaccuracy of the drones and the Iranian missiles. I don't think there's been a serious attempt yet. And if they wanted, they could do a great deal of damage to the Gulf states. I think both Iran and to some degree maybe the Gulf states would like to avoid direct confrontation, and they understand that it will lead to a major disaster if the Gulf states were to retaliate to the current attacks by Iran. At the same time,
just on that point, I was making that point earlier to our viewers, that if you have Gulf Sunni states attacking Shiite positions in Iran, what does that mean to the wider region?
Well, it will lead into a total disaster. And of course, people are wise and aware of the fact that we are all being drawn into a folly that is being designed and orchestrated by an indicted war criminal. You know, Mr. Netanyahu, he is leading the whole world into this disaster. He's been fixated on Iran for the last 40 years. Now he had the opportunity with the current US president, and he managed to get his way. The last thing we want is to be drawn into more of this. And this, I think, applied to a lot of the European countries and to the initial position by Britain. Yeah. I think Britain and the Europeans understand the danger of the situation.
Well, I'm sure they do, but we are where we are.
Very keen on having negotiations with Iran for many, many years.
Yeah, but I'm sure there are frustrations on all sides. But from the Gulf states' perspective, the central strategic question becomes: what happens when the anti-missile stocks start to dwindle?
Well, I think they will be in greater trouble. At the moment, many of the Gulf states have joint defense agreements with countries like Britain, like France. As you know, there's a joint squadron between the United Kingdom and Qatar, and all feel the necessity to defend the Gulf states. And I think they'll probably resupply and attempt to defend as much as possible. But then the real question is whether the Gulf states will then counter the attacks and join into attacking whatever targets the US and Israel identify for them. That's going to be disastrous, I think.
I was in Geneva on Thursday. There were talks planned for this week in Vienna. Qatar has historically positioned itself as a mediator with Hamas, with Iran, with the Taliban. Does that position, that role that you play, is that now dead?
I don't think it will ever die. I mean, this is a voluntary role that Qatar plays, and it can only offer it when parties are willing to talk to each other. Unfortunately, now since June, the experience between the Iranians and the United States has been one of lack of goodwill, and really the negotiations have been pursued without good faith in them. And this is the result, that they have failed, but that doesn't mean that the mediator is necessarily at fault or will stop trying to offer their good offices for these processes. A lot depends on the parties. And it is unfortunate that in the last, since the 7th of October, in fact, we've seen waves of manipulation of negotiations and mediation efforts, starting with the many times that Israel broke the negotiation process and assassinated people. And now we see the U.S. following from with the same
but could I just get a final view from you, Dr. Barakat? I mean, there will be public pressure the more that Qatar is targeted. Do you think at some point it is inevitable that Qatar and the other Gulf states will be forced to join this war?
I hope not, but I think for now they're focused on defending themselves. So they're very much focused on, bringing down drones, missiles, etc. And you saw what happened in Kuwait as a result of that. Okay. But if they were to turn it into a confrontation, I think it would be very dangerous. They're very aware of the fact that Iran is a 90 million people. They can absorb the first hit, which they probably are doing at the moment, and then they can do really a great deal of damage, including because of the geographical physical proximity. Iranian soldiers can simply cross the sea into those Gulf countries. It's not going to be just a remote war as it is being conducted at the moment. So there's a lot at risk, and I'm sure that the leaders in those countries will be calculating very carefully where would this take us. And the real hope is that the United States will see the light and will understand, and the rest of the world, that this is totally unnecessary and it is being done on false assumptions, and it's not really worth it. It's not worth it in terms of civilian casualties,
Dr. Barakat,
and certainly in terms of economic impact for the rest of the world.
Dr. Barakat, grateful for your time as ever. Thank you very much for that. We are hearing that Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer may be set to make a statement to the House of Commons in the next few hours. We will, of course, take you to that. If you are just joining us, news in the last hour that a fourth death has been confirmed, a fourth US service person confirmed to have been killed. It was part of the strike yesterday in which 3 American service people were killed. Let me show you live pictures from Arlington, because we understand that the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, is about to speak to reporters there. And of course, we'll be asked to explain how it is that 3 US fighters were shot down today by friendly fire in Kuwait. Anna will take you to that when he appears.
Let's take a moment to analyse some of what you were discussing there, Christian, on what is happening in the Gulf and their reaction to that. Our correspondent, Barbara Plett-Usher, is in Doha. Barbara, these countries, they act individually, but they also act collectively as well. What kind of messaging are we getting from them at the moment?
We're getting statements of condemnation and saying that they will reserve the right to respond if they feel it is necessary. The Gulf Cooperation Council, which draws together the Gulf Arab states, held a video link conference yesterday in order to get onto the same message, and they came out condemning what they called treacherous Iranian attacks. They said they would defend their countries, they would defend their citizens, and that if necessary, they would respond to Iranian aggression. We got that message individually from Qatar and from the UAE earlier, so very much telegraphing that they are prepared to respond if they feel it is necessary. I think your guest is right, though, that calculation is very difficult to make because they want to de-escalate the situation. Would joining the strikes be in their interest? And also, it is a war that has been forced upon them by Israel, by the United States. Would they really be wanting to join that? And would they see it as beneficial to them? All of those questions have to be asked. I think the element here is length of time. This goes on for quite a long time. And also, if the Iranian